Good day. Today, the University of Fort Hare joins millions of South Africans and other people the world over in celebrating the Youth Month. It is 44 years since the 1976 youth uprisings, where the youth of our country protested against Bantu education. We hold these celebrations under testing times, given the challenges presented by the COVID-19 pandemic. However, the University of Fort Hare has managed to go virtual in celebrating the 2020 Youth Month. The theme of this celebration is "I quote, the role of young people in reimagining a better South Africa," close quotes. This theme implores young people to start new conversations underpinned by cooperation and tolerance, to ensure that we strengthen structures of governance that enable institutions of higher learning to keep on delivering quality education. The theme also speaks to the fact that we call upon young people and student leaders in particular to provide thought leadership in ensuring that things like violence and destruction of property are things of the past. We need these university buildings for future generations. After all, not even a bird destroys its nest. We have a common responsibility to ensure that we preserve the legacy of the 1976 generation. I welcome everyone to join us in these celebrations. We are honored indeed to have the Vice Chancellor of the University of Fort Hare, Professor Buhlungu, to do the welcoming and to introduce our guest speaker. Thank you to all.
Let me start by welcoming everybody to this occasion. Firstly, the students and the SRC, and secondly, of course, staff from Student Affairs and the Dean of Students, and very importantly, of course, our guest in chief, Professor Thuli Madonsela from Stellenbosch University. Thank you very much, Professor, for honoring this occasion and for agreeing to give this presentation on the importance and significance of June 16 to young people and what it means for the future. 1976 was 44 years ago, of course, and it's a very important occasion for the history of the country. It was a moment of strife, it was a moment of difficulty, but also it was a moment of hope. And indeed, it was that hope that brought us to where we are today. And it gives me great pleasure, therefore, to have to host this event at the University of Fort Hare. And I look forward to a very enriching set of discussions by Professor Madonsela, as well as by the other people that are going to be making brief contributions here. Once again, the University of Fort Hare is a very proper and fitting kind of site or venue for this commemoration. The university has prided itself over the years, in fact, over a century, as being a site for young people to come enrich themselves, to earn degrees, but also to carve new career paths for themselves. And we still do that today. And so there is something that we have in common with the youth of 1976, and namely that of courage, that of determination, but most importantly, that of hope about the future. It is therefore my wish that by the end of this session, we will be able to look at the future with fresh eyes. But let me end by saying that as we pay tribute to the young people of 1976 who braved bullets and armored cars in pursuit of their goals and their desires and their dream of a better South Africa. Similarly, I would like to pay tribute to the students of Fort Hare over generations, over the last century, who similarly, in different ways perhaps, but who similarly pursued the same dreams, the dream of a democratic South Africa, of a free South Africa, of a South Africa where social justice is the norm. And therefore, I'm very proud then that Fort Hare has played over the last century a role not vastly different to that played by the young people of 1976.
Greetings and salutations to all the youth of this current dispensation, to the Vice Chancellor of this iconic institution, and the management at large. Honorable Advocate Thuli Madonsela, in her capacity as our guest and keynote address, I greet you all. This month, we commemorate the free-thinking and courageous youth of 1976. The youth that confronted a brutal system of racial segregation. Today, the youth of this country faces different challenges such as high rate of unemployment, high rate of poverty, the gender-based violence, the COVID-19, and many other ills that continues to have a negative impact in our society. As I deliver this message, I want to tell all young people that the challenges of today, they can be overcome. History teaches us that a determined and driven youth has the resolve to overcome any hurdle set before it. The COVID-19 pandemic have taught us so many lessons about how we should conduct ourselves. Amongst those lessons that we have learned is the importance of healthy lifestyle and hygiene. I am aware that there is a lot that still needs to be done in the country. Even though many strides have been made for young people to access education, I still maintain that not all people who deserve to be in the institution of higher learning are able to access the system. As I close, I would like to inspire the hearts and minds of the Fort Hare student populace its alumni, and the community that it has touched. As we continue to draw inspiration from the youth of 1976, our ultimate goal as this current generation is not only to preserve the values derived from their struggle, but also to amplify them in a bid to realize a restored, vibrant, and empowered youth. I thank you.
Siyazakela Tuma Enterprising Communities Initiative is another way as a young person you could join hands with others to make a difference in your life and in the life of your community or your group. Siyazakela project helps communities to understand sustainable development goals, the National Development Plan, and the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, to overlay this and turn them into community or group goals, and then chart a pathway or various pathways for the future they want for themselves. And then going forward, some of these goals will be pursued as a group, things like security, transport, health, etc. For example, we're doing this at Emanzimele in KwaZulu-Natal, where we've already started with schools, fixing them as a group. Then other things you can pursue as individuals. You can start your own enterprise, grow an enterprise, or work as a group in growing that enterprise. The key to enterprising communities is having an enterprise in mind, understanding that there's always something you can leverage to improve your own life. And then the role of the Tuma Foundation in this regard, and that role could be the role of any development facilitator, which includes yourselves as students, is to help these communities link up with government to get their democracy dividend, to link up with businesses in the neighboring area, to work with them as social impact investment partners, similar to Dragons in Dragon's Den and Shark Tank in Shark Tank. What does it mean for you as a student? I would like to ask you to become an enterprising young person, but to work within groups as an enterprising community, as a group, enterprising graduates or enterprising undergraduates, or with communities as an enterprising community. Because an enterprising community, firstly, it's about leveraging whatever resources you have, but also key to an enterprising community is functioning as a community, as an ecosystem, supporting each other to ensure you become a resilient community. It is my wish that none of you will come out of Fort Hare or any university in this country and call themselves unemployed. Let's start now when you're at a university. Create a website for yourself. Start selling some of the skills that you have in the open market. You can do this. Get yourself working as a social enterprise, a company. It might not be a registered company initially. Or join YES, the Youth Employment Service, that makes sure that you can get some basic skills. The truth is, the jobs as we know them are dwindling. And if it were my wish, we should stop talking about jobs. The United Nations and the international labor organizations don't talk about jobs, they talk about work. You have a right to work in terms of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But what is work? It doesn't mean that you have to be employed by someone else. You can be self-employed. You can be employed in a social enterprise, yours or someone else's. Be the generation that creates work for yourselves. From government, you have to help government to design policies that make it easy for people to work for themselves and to create jobs. That make sure that in the rural areas, there is digital connection, there's digital connectivity. rural areas, that the roads are fine. So that, like in China, you can be anywhere in the world, but you are super connected to the rest of the world. The key to the end plan for social justice, and they see as a killer enterprising communities initiative, is helping communities to lift themselves ground up, but at the same time making sure that we bridge the inequality gap. Because many of us, I am one of those who are privileged because I have received the benefits of democracy. That's why I would like to pay it forward. I've spoken about how I am supporting my nephew, who is now doing a master's degree in agriculture. I've assisted his sisters, his brother, etc. And assist other students in every little way possible. And as I said earlier, do not think that because you can only do little, then you shouldn't do anything. Because the small acts of kindness can change the world. They changed the world for me. My parents couldn't take me beyond grade 10. But through the generosity of strangers, I went right up to university. That's why I'm involved with the Mbumba Foundation's initiative that's Caring for Girls, and summited Kilimanjaro last year for this purpose. That's why, as Tuma Foundation, we're helping Palisa Musa, who was arrested at the age of 12 on June 16. And today, she says she doesn't want democracy because they fought for freedom and they got democracy. And democracy is as good as the past laws because they still can't do what they want to do. We can sit here and blame government. The truth is we're all in this boat together. And if each one of us does something to ensure there's work for everyone, but not just that there's work for everyone, but also that the inequality between us is reduced, then we can get closer to the better South Africa that we're talking about. So reimagining South Africa for me means fidelity to the constitutional promise of social justice. It means you as a young person, I as a grown-up, and everyone else taking responsibility for driving this country to the future we want. Reimagining South Africa means being honest, those of us who are privileged, either because you're beneficiaries of apartheid and patriarchy, or because you have received the low-lying fruits of democracy. Understanding that you've got to pay it forward. And it doesn't mean charity. It means helping people like Palisa Musa to lift themselves up. But it also means those who really have been privileged should not be a burden to the state. That we should create work, even if the only work that you create is work for yourself. That's part of the solution. Why is this important? What's in it for me and you? Peace. As long as there's injustice somewhere, there can't be sustainable peace anywhere. And secondly, structural efficiency. In our country, we can't have efficiency in our economy, in our development initiative, because the majority of our people are tied up by poverty, by under-education, by underdevelopment, by illnesses. So if we want to operate optimally as a country, we need to liberate everyone from poverty and everything that undermines their potential. In other words, it's all our job to free the potential of every person. A lot of young people believe they didn't create this problem, and that's what you probably think. That's what you're probably thinking right now. Palisa Musa did not create this problem, but she solved it. So she played our part. We are on higher ground today because the 1976 generation played its part. And that's my generation. We played our part. We may not have done a perfect job, but we have something to show for ourselves. And together, we have a duty now to show that we've moved from one point to another. Because every generation has a responsibility and opportunity to write a better chapter in the history, its country, and the world. So the power to write the next chapter of this country and the continent lies in your capable hands. And I'm certain you'll do. Happy June 16, happy Youth Day, and may you help us to transcend commitment. Blessings.